This is the In the Money podcast for KeenelandSelect.com for the Friday, April 11th card. Makers 46-mile day at Keeneland. Tom Leach, along with Keeneland's director of simulcasting, Jim Goodman. And it is a 10-race card to take a look at. Well, not the whole card, but we take a look at the feature race and then the late pick 4. But it is a 10-race card on Friday. And the Maker's Mark, or Maker's 46-mile, grade 1, is the 9th race. You got the two-time Horse of the Year, Wise Dan, in there, Jim. I talked to Charlie Lepresti yesterday, and that'll be up it should be up now on the Keeneland YouTube channel. And he said he thinks he's as good or better than he's ever been, but he also said it's been a really hard winter, and so he may be giving away a little fitness to some horses that have already run. So is that enough to get Wise Dan beat?
Well, it could be. I hate to bet against him, but there's no way you can bet on him. He's going to be 1-5. He's 2-5 morning line, and I think he'll be 1-5 simply because of the reputation. And a lot of people come to the track just saying, I'm going to have a win ticket on Wise Dan. I think Zaw Approval has a shot. If you look back at the Breeders' Cup Mile last year, Wise Dan beat Zaw Approval by 3/4 of a length. And if you're talking about Zaw Approval at a morning line of 5-1, I don't think you're going to get that. I think it's going to be more like 7-2 on him. But if you're talking about value, I think you have to look at Zaw Approval as having had one prep race, the Frank Kilroe Mile, which he finished second to, actually third to Winning Prize in Lochte, who's also in here. I think Zaw Approval has probably got the back class to compete with Wise Dan. He hasn't been in Keeneland. Wise Dan obviously has home court advantage. But I think from a value standpoint, you have to put him in here. The other horse, Lochte, has gotten really good lately. You look back at his past performances, and you couldn't make a case for him at all for grade 1s up until this year. He's running a 25,000 optional claiming, and all of a sudden he runs the Gulfstream Park Turf Handicap in a grade 1, and then he almost won the Kilroe Mile, just getting beat by Winning Prize. So he's run great the last 2 times. So I give Lochte a chance as well. So I don't think Wise Dan is a walkover. I think Charlie is probably honest about that it's been a terrible winter here in the Bluegrass, and Wise Dan may just need one. So I'm gonna take a stand against him. Hate to bet against him, but I will.
Yeah, and I talked to Charlie too about the weather and what would he do if the race came up on soft turf or on a poly track, and it sounded like the only way he'd scratch him would be if it switched to the poly, because that happened last fall and Wise Dan lost that day, and that was an unusual circumstance because just you had the skies opened up and the poly track drained spectacularly, but it just couldn't handle all the water in that short amount of time that day. So that was a little bit of an unusual circumstance. But my guess is he'll probably go in this race, but I think he is vulnerable because of how the winter's been here, and Zaw Approvals is the one that I like. If I've got to pick somebody to beat him, I'm going Zaw Approval, because I think that Kilbro, it was a grade 1, but I think it was a prep for this. So I think he's going to be, pointed for this race to be at his best and to try to take down Wise Dan. Lochte certainly got to consider. So I would Zaw Approval for a win bet, and then if you want to do exacta, Zaw Approval and Wise Dan, Zaw Approval and Lochte. The latter one would certainly pay big if Wise Dan didn't finish in the top 2, but that's hard to imagine. So I'm going to take Zaw Approval just because it makes it doesn't make sense to bet on the 2-5. So, and I think he's got a shot, like you said. I think, you look at that Breeders' Cup race, and it's not like he's got 4 or 5 lengths that he has to make up. Let's take a look at the late pick 4. Starts in race 7 on the Friday card. You got a horse that actually has already won at the meet, Maserati, on opening day, that's wheeling right back for Kenny McPeak, that I think is a must-use in here. And then I also used Sailor's Creek, Green Grass of Wyoming, and Upkeep. Then in the 8th race, Granny Mac's Kitten I like a lot, so definitely use that one. But also Street Home Alabama for another McPeak, and Pretty Fancy for Rusty Arnold. And then in the Makers, I'll use Zaw Approval and Wise Dan. And then in the last race, Tis Tebow Time, the 2, the 3, Skestos, and the 12 next in line. How's your late pick 4 ticket look?
Well, mine is similar to yours. It's a little more expensive. I used exactly the same horses you used first leg, 2, 3, 5, 8. I like all those horses. Maserati coming back in a week may become the first horse to win twice at Keeneland. That's very unusual on a 15-day meet. And Kenny doesn't do that often, so I think Maserati's ready. So 2, 3, 5, 8 with Upkeep, Green Grass, Wyoming, and Sailor's Creek for me. The second leg, I would use Playful Love as a long shot with Ian Wilkes. B.J. Hernandez always comes up with a couple of upsets at the Keeneland meet. So I would take Playful Love, Street Home Alabama, the 4, Granny McKitten, the 6, and the 9-horse Handmade for Alvarado Neil Howard. And then I would use exactly the same as you, Zaw Approval and Wise Dan. I would, you single Wise Dan, you can cut this ticket in half, but spend the extra money because if he gets beat, it will multiply many times. And then the last race, I would go 5 deep with the 2 Tebow Time, the 7 Well Versed, the 8 Bold Visionary, the 9 Awfully Sinister, and the 12 next in line for Corey Lannery. That horse might get overlooked here. And
I think so too.
It ran okay at Churchill, and Tom Drury brings it back after a long layoff, but he may get overlooked, so I'm going to throw him in there. So that's an $80 ticket, 4x4 by 2x5.
And Drury's numbers are very good off those long layoffs. And back to the Maserati horse that we both mentioned. I like in a short meet like this, and you've got a synthetic surface. I think a lot of times that's a trainer saying, "Boy, my horse really loved this. I got to get him on this as many times as he can handle because it's such a short meet and the money's great." So I tend to usually like horses in that spot. That I think it's a real sign of confidence by the trainer.
Yeah, I do too. I think that's a good angle in that race.
All right, enjoy the Friday Makers 46-mile card. Saturday is a huge day, headlined by the Grade 1 Toyota Bluegrass Stakes. We'll have 2 podcasts here at Keeneland Select tomorrow. The Keeneland Stakes races on one and the stakes races from Oaklawn Park, headlined by the Arkansas Derby in the other. Remember to keep your Keeneland Select accounts fully funded. If you can't get to the track every day, you can still play through KeenelandSelect.com. This is the In the Money Podcast.